But I mean, seriously, and all due respect, I mean, it just wouldn't fly like that in real life.
No, it really would not.
They would all be crazy, but they'd be so much harder to deal with. Yeah, but they wouldn't all be leading behind the obvious weaker protagonist. You know,
Yeah.
he'd be, if anything, in real life, he'd be like
Oh,
a
and
gnat.
one other thing that I didn't like about the movie version, they really overdid his wimpiness. Like, I mean, there's actually a scene in there where he cannot crawl out of a 5-foot hole.
Yeah. They didn't even say that in the book.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. Like, I know it might be a little bit of an effort, but seriously, you can't crawl out of a 5-foot hole. Shia LaBeouf, for starters, Shia LaBeouf is like, what, 6'2"?
I guess.
He's a tall
give
little
or
dude.
take.
He's a tall dude. And, I mean, in the book, he wasn't like a small guy. He was just fat. Who can't crawl out of a hole? I mean, you put your arms up and you wiggle and then you roll. It's not that difficult.
Not at all.
Giggity.
So, even I could get out of a 5-foot hole. Me being all of 5'1".
Exactly.
Just jump.
Exactly.
And pull yourself up.
Yeah.
And I mean, considering he's a skinny little dude, he could balance his body weight.
Yeah, they definitely overdid the wimpiness.
They did.
For sure.
But I mean, seriously, like a good point you had made earlier when we were discussing this is that, I mean, they did, in every movie, I can't think of one where he's not a pushover, except for the series that put him on the spot, which is Even Stevens. And he was the central character on Even Stevens.
Yeah, and honestly, you know, I might be getting ready to make a lot of people angry, but I personally, this is a personal preference, don't get on the comment box and start, you know, mutilating me. I don't like Shia LaBeouf as an actor. And here's the reason. It's not that he's a bad actor. His acting isn't bad. The reason is because every character he plays starts out as a wimp, and he always seems to overdo it. And I don't know, I have a real aversion to characters like that. I don't know why, it's a personal preference, but anyway.
I like Shia LaBeouf, but
Yeah.
I mean, he does actually do the pushover role quite often.
And using that, like Clyde said a little while ago, how the character progressed entirely too quickly. They get into the middle of a bar, and the dude literally, watch the video. He pushes the kid after he said, okay, let me start from the beginning. Sorry, this really irritates me because I know what would really happen, and this is not even close to it. The guy's sitting there, and he goes, watch yourself. And Shia LaBeouf says, you watch it, man. Dude gets up, pushes him, and all the other guys are like, oh, Caveman's a badass.
In the house?
What? No, that's not the end of it. That's the beginning. If you're
It
a
wasn't
male,
even a fight. It was a push, love tap, if anything. I mean, you're in a detention center full of kids that are crazy. Hello, and I mean,
yeah,
there'd be a real fight. Maybe a knife fight. Someone would probably get killed.
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I've seen more hardcore fights in grade school.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That's pretty sad.
I don't know, but it's whatever.
And second of all, who sends a kid to a desert? I mean, government funded, and the government doesn't look into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't look into it because, like I said, the food. I mean, grade D. Okay, I can leave that alone. Fine. But then you got the fact everybody is wearing long sleeves. They're digging holes for no reason to build character. Okay, the government would be asking questions. Their filing is out of date. The counselors are ruthless, and they single out one person. Like it seemed like the whole movie they all singled Zero out.
Yeah.
And that poor kid had everything against him. He couldn't read. He had no family. He had nowhere to go. He'd been on his own his whole life. He paid his dues. All he did the same thing. He stole a pair of shoes from a shoe store, and they're treating him like he killed the president or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, and just in real life, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, they even hint to one of the other other characters later that one of the other characters may have actually killed somebody, because they say that there's like one that's schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is a more dangerous character. And you don't think they'd be paying more attention to somebody like that as opposed to a little kid that can't read?
Yeah. And I will say this. The book did a lot better job of doing character growth. And the characters were more believable, I guess. I understand why Disney didn't do this. I mean, because Disney was making they were pandering to a younger audience. Like, the book was made for young adults, 13 to 18. That's pretty much the group that they were aimed for. And, you know, for that group, they did well. The movie that Disney came out with was pandering more to younger kids, like 10 to 15 kind of age group.
Yeah.
So I understand why they did it, but it doesn't excuse the poor quality with which it was done.
No, and I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm gonna have to like, and another thing that kind of irks me is I was a big fan of the book.
Oh yeah, I was too.
Yeah, we both were, and Pendanski, like, for one, he was not that bad in the book. He was actually one of the counselors that, I mean, he was, okay, I'm not going to say he wasn't bad, because he was a bit of a douchebag.
But you ended up sympathizing with him.
But you did, because he was kind of cool. And I mean, everybody, instead of calling him Pendanski, they call him Mom, because of all of the counselors, he is the one that seems to, you know, cater to everybody. He seems to genuinely care, whereas in the movie, he's one of the, I mean, like, one of the more conflict-oriented parts, like, he's actually pushing Stanley and Zigzag to fight.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean...
He's more of an antagonist in the movie.
Antagonist in the movie, and, I mean, in the book, everybody's calling him Mom. I mean, and they don't explain that in the movie. They just say, hey, Mom, and you're like, well, what did they call him? Why are they calling him Mom?
Granted, I do suppose that they kind of expected you to figure it out on your own, which you do to a degree, but it would have been nice for a little character development beforehand, instead of leaving us to figure it out for ourselves.
See, what, like I told you earlier, like before we had sat down and discussed this, is on the DVD, they show in the deleted scenes, Stanley sits in his camp, or in his bed, daydreaming about him going back to school, and the bully that's has bullied him, like, at school the whole time, takes his notebooks and throws them in the toilet, and, like, he starts pushing him around, and he just fantasizes his friends from camp, like, pushing him around.
Yeah.
And that happens in the book. I don't know about you, but I'd have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, it would have been a good...
Because those were the only real friends he had.
Yeah. But,
he never really had friends until he came to camp.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I don't know, I think putting that into the movie might have actually been a little too over the top for Disney. Like, it would have been a little more than was desired for the youth of the audience they were looking for, as far as how young the children were.
I liked it because...
Oh, I did too, definitely. It was definitely a good addition, and I hate that they cut it from the movie, but I can understand why.
Yeah, plus it probably would have ran it a little longer.
It's at this point in the movie and the book that the story splits into 3 sections. I actually went online and did some research and looked up some of the critics' reviews on this movie. For some reason, it got a B-. Again, this story has a few plot holes, but I think it did better than a B- personally.
No, it was a good movie.
You know, it wasn't a bad movie. It just has some serious flaws.
Yeah, pun
going
intended.
On in it.
Holes.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Indeed. But...
I mean, like the critic that you had said, that we had both seen that reviewed it, said it skips around too much, and would they say they were confused? I'm sorry, but I mean, without it jumping around, you'd be lost without it, because, I mean, it explains everything, and in the end, it all wraps up in a neat little book.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a pointless jump, because all 3 points actually converge at the end to make one big story, so you kind of have to have that happen to have all those stories come together. I don't understand how a critic who's supposed to be super intelligent as far as movie goes could miss that.
Me either.
What's up with that? I mean, she must have been an idiot.
Yeah, because if the little kids and adults and teenagers, all the families that watched it can get the switching around, then why can't one critic? I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah. Another plot hole is... What was she planning on doing with the kids after she found the chest?
They never explain it.
No, I mean, obviously she wasn't planning on keeping them around. I mean, what are they going to do, shut the camp down with no explanation of the state? Hello, you're getting state funded. I think they would pay a little bit more attention to what's going on and where their money's going.
I still don't get how a state can fund a camp like that and not look into it.
Yeah, I don't know either, but the point is, come in. Well, you're just in time. We're doing our weblog.
Really?
Group, this is Will. Will, this is Group.
What's up?
All right, back to what we were doing. So again, I don't understand.
Like I said,
I don't understand a lot of the plot holes here. Like, I think they could have done a lot better job with it, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Another thing about this movie is, for a Disney film, actually, because this is Disney's film, probably, they had a lot, and I mean a lot.